All right. We'll reconvene. Chief Minister, I invite you as Minister for Police to introduce the officials accompanying you and to make an opening statement regarding the Northern Territory Police Force.
Thank you very much, Mr Chair and members of the committee. I'm pleased to introduce the officials joining me at Estimates hearing today. I have with me Mr Martin Dole, APM, the Acting Commissioner of Police, Mr Matt Hollamby, APM, Acting Deputy Commissioner. We have Ms Emma O'Leary, Chief Financial Officer down the end there, and Ms Lisa Wilson, Acting Deputy Chief Executive Officer. I will introduce other senior officials as required. As you can see, we've got a fantastic team ready to go if required. I'm able to proceed with my opening statement.
Please proceed, Chief Minister.
Thank you. I'd just really like to start by thanking Acting Commissioner Martin Dole for the work he's done since stepping into the role of Commissioner in March this year. Policing is never without its challenges, and I really appreciate the professionalism he's displayed during this time and that of his entire team. We were elected, Mr Chair, on a promise to reduce crime, and our number one priority has been that since coming to government. It's about community safety and supporting our police. The 25-26 budget is about restoring confidence for Territorians and the Northern Territory Police Force, who are at the forefront of ensuring safety, security and stability for all Territorians. As we discuss the 25-26 budget, I want to reaffirm our commitment to reducing crime, rebuilding the economy and restoring a unique Territory lifestyle, objectives that are deeply embedded in the work that we do every single day. The Northern Territory Police Force operates across an expansive jurisdiction of approximately 1.42 million square kilometres, making it one of the largest policing areas in Australia. This vast territory includes some of the most remote and isolated communities, requiring specialised policing strategies to ensure effective law enforcement and community safety, no matter where you live. The Northern Territory Police maintains a strong operational footprint, servicing 49 police stations and 15 police posts, strategically positioned across the Northern Territory, as well as a multi-jurisdictional facility in Warrakurna on the Northern Territory Western Australia border, where one officer is stationed to collaborate with the WA Police in cross-border law enforcement efforts. This partnership enhances policing capabilities in remote areas, ensuring coordinated responses to crime and community needs. In this, our year of action, certainty and security, this budget represents a historic investment in law enforcement, with a record $1.5 billion allocated to law and order. This includes $608 million specifically for police, which is an increase on $36 million on the previous year. This funding is not just about the numbers, it is about strengthening our frontline, supporting our hard-working police, expanding our capabilities and delivering tangible results that will make the Northern Territory safer, which is a mandate we took to the election and have every intention on delivering on for the people of the Northern Territory. Public safety is the foundation of a strong community, and this budget ensures that the Northern Territory Police Force has the resources necessary to combat crime effectively and protect communities. Key measures of the budget include $95 million to continue the police funding package, ensuring operational stability, $10.2 million for the remote policing implementation plan, reinforcing law enforcement presence in remote communities, $4.7 million for Air Wing Police aircraft replacement and leasing, enhancing our rapid response capabilities, $3.5 million for school-based policing, fostering early intervention and youth engagement, $3 million for the Police, Fire and Emergency Services Wellbeing Strategy, supporting mental health and resilience, $1.3 million for increased CCTV monitoring staff, improving surveillance and crime prevention, and $1 million per year for the Police Banned Drinker Order Support Team, tackling alcohol-related offending. Since coming to office, 135 new police officers have joined the ranks, with a further 20 due to commence before the end of this year. These investments will increase police visibility, improve response times and enhance crime prevention strategies, ensuring that every Territorian feels safe in their community. Beyond immediate policing efforts, this budget also delivers $186 million over 4 years for four major police infrastructure projects, including $143.5 million for remote police infrastructure and housing upgrades, ensuring officers stationed in remote areas have the facilities that they need, $35.7 million to construct a new multi-purpose police complex in Manuel, strengthening law enforcement presence in that region. $6.6 million for upgrades to the Joint Emergency Services Communication Centre, improving coordination and emergency response capability. These investments modernise our policing infrastructure, ensuring that officers have the best possible resources to serve and protect Territorians. My government has also introduced stronger policing powers to reduce crime and improve community safety. These reforms include the strongest bail laws in Australia, removing detention as a last resort for youth offenders, mandatory electronic monitoring for repeat offenders, ensuring accountability, new offences for ram raids, post and boast, and nuisance public drinking, mandatory minimum sentences for assaults on frontline workers, and expanded warning powers under Declan's law, enabling police to detect and prevent knife crime more easily. These legislative changes empower our officers to act decisively, ensuring that criminal behaviour is met with swift and effective consequences. Consequences that we are realising a generation has never seen under the previous government. These changes we have made has led to more than 550 people off the streets and in prison, because that is what the community expects, that those who wish to cause harm on others will face a consequence. This budget is more than just an allocation of funds, Mr Chair. It is a strategic investment in the safety, security and resilience of the Northern Territory. By strengthening our police force, expanding infrastructure and enhancing legislative powers, we are ensuring that law enforcement remains a cornerstone of our community's wellbeing. Mr Chair, members of the committee and colleagues, this budget reflects our unwavering commitment to protecting Territorians, supporting our police and ensuring that the Northern Territory remains a place where people can live safely and businesses can thrive. Ensuring public safety is fundamental to fostering a stable and prosperous business environment, making the Northern Territory a more attractive place for investment. A safe and secure jurisdiction also instills confidence in businesses, investors and industries looking to expand or establish operations here. By supporting and strengthening law enforcement, crime prevention measures and emergency response capabilities, we can create an environment that will be encouraging people to invest here across our key focus sectors of tourism, agriculture, defence, and of course mining and gas. We know investors seek locations where their assets, their workforce and their customers are able to be protected and safe. And our strong commitment to public safety enhances that economic resilience, it reduces disruptions and it promotes long-term business and population growth. With a well-supported police force maintaining law and order, the Northern Territory stands out as a secure and thriving destination for new opportunities and sustainable investments. This year has also presented significant challenges for the Northern Territory Police Force through the ICAC investigation Operation Apollo, which raised serious concerns of conflicts of interest involving former Police Commissioner Mr Murphy. These concerns ultimately resulted in the Commissioner's termination and prompted the Northern Territory Police Association to call for an independent review into all senior executive appointments within the force. Our government responded, appointing the Honourable Justice Alan Blow AO to lead a review aimed at restoring integrity and internal confidence and public trust in police leadership. The outcome of that review is expected in the coming months, and at the conclusion of that, there will be a formal recruitment process for a new Police Commissioner. In closing, I'd like to take this opportunity to put on the record our appreciation to all of the men and women of the Northern Territory Police Force who pull on that blue uniform every day. To those who not only put on the uniform, but of course all of the important staff that we have behind the scenes and all of the families who support our officers and our staff to go out and do what they do every single day. Thank you for your unwavering commitment to protecting our communities and ensuring the safety of all Territorians. Whether serving in our cities or remote areas, your resilience and professionalism are invaluable. Policing is demanding, and we recognise the sacrifices our police make every day. That is why our government stands firmly behind our police, delivering record investments in the policing budget and making sure that they have the support and the powers they need to do their job. Your dedication does not go unnoticed, and your service does make a difference. I'm now very happy to take questions. Thank you, Mr Chair.
Thank you, Chief Minister and Acting Commissioner. As the member for 𝙍𝙀𝙇𝙀𝙑, I'd like to thank yourself and everyone in the Northern Territory Police Force for the work you do. I'll now are there any questions on the statement? Member Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd also like to echo the words of yourself, Chair, and similarly to the Chief Minister, and acknowledging the work of our hardworking police officers. Probably one thing that we often agree with each other, Chief Minister, is that our police are out there day in and day out working hard to protect, serve and keep our communities safe. We thank them for that, from the top end to the Central Desert out to the east and the west of the Northern Territory borders. So thank you to our men and women in blue and all of those supporting staff. Chief Minister, you made a firm commitment to Territorians that you would fix crime, and that's one of your 3 key areas that you often talk about, and you promised to restore law and order. And it's becoming increasingly clear that you've only, after the fact, focused on crime rather than the prevention. Chief Minister, what is actually making a difference is preventing crime in the first place. And in the 7 months of your government, we have seen serious assaults up more than 11%. That's an increase of 553 assault cases. Sexual offences are up almost 20%. That's an increase of 41 assaults against an adult. Total offences against the person are up 7.4%, an increase of 550 cases. And total property offences are up by 4.5%, an increase of 527 cases, Chief Minister. You often say the crime stats are only one measure, which is ironic because when you were in opposition, you said otherwise. It is a very important measure, of course, and another important measure that Territorians are talking about crime, and many that I speak to, Chief Minister, are saying that crime is either no better or actually getting worse under your CLP government. You can, of course, blame Labor all you like, but the reality is, Chief Minister, you have now been in power for 10 months with your government, and Territorians want to know when you'll actually meet your commitment. So when can Territorians expect you to deliver on this key commitment that you made to Territorians for their safety?
Thank you very much, Opposition Leader. And it's almost laughable that you would expect me to fix your government's mess, which took 8 years to create in 10 short months. And I think what our government has shown, in very stark contrast to the government that you belong to and were the Attorney General of, is an absolute commitment to drive down rates of crime. Now, we have delivered on our commitment to quickly pass legislation through the Parliament. We've given police a wide range of new and additional powers that they didn't have before, powers that they'd been asking for, powers that we heard about from the front line that would make their job better and make our community safer. I mentioned in our opening statement that there is an increase in 550 people in prison since us coming to government, and we've been able to build and create those beds, which is another huge project and another huge legacy of Labor leaving behind a totally unfit for purpose correctional system that couldn't take the demand. And we continue to do that work. Now, I've always been very clear, crime statistics are one measure and they're important. And now that we've had a significant enough period of SERPRO, we can compare apples with apples. But how people feel is what is most important. And so crime stats is one, and there's certainly patchy Opposition Leader. I've been very, very open about that, and they're all available for anyone to see. When we look at, sort of comparing the December 23 to March 24 period with December 24 to March 25, we're seeing some good outcomes when it comes to offences against property, with an 11% decrease there, a 4% decrease in victim-based offences. Burglary is down significantly at 30%. Theft is down 16.8%. So we've got some really good data coming through, but it is a little bit patchy. I know when you compare, I think it was last month on the previous year, assaults were still higher than we'd certainly like them to be, but reductions in property crime were just about down across the territory, with the exception of Tennant Creek from memory. So we continue to work really hard on this. It's also about increasing our police numbers. So we've had 135 graduate already in the last 10 months, and we just were in 44 on Friday, which was amazing. Fantastic to see all of those new constables hitting the ground running. So there's lots of really fantastic work being done. And on top of that then, so that's really, that's at what we sort of call a lot the pointy end. There's all the work that has to be done to stop particularly young people turning to a life of crime in the first place. And so significant areas of reform that we've already delivered on, and I mentioned this earlier in Department of Chief Minister and Cabinet around family responsibility agreements, the circuit breaker program, school attendance officers, holding parents accountable. We've been doing a lot of work with the federal government, and we have an officer level working group. And that's a result of, many backwards and forwards and conversations with Senator McCarthy and the member for Lingiari, and indeed the relevant federal ministers around what changes could be made at an administrative level. So where the working group is looking, one of the ones that we had a very quick win on was the CASA exemption. So that was really good. The federal government provided really quick changes to CASA exemptions so that we could better utilise the drone in Alice Springs. And that's been, I can tell you, when you're out on the ground in Alice, the coppers down there, they love that drone. It's been a really terrific tool that they use up on the top of what do you call that little hill? Billy Goat Hill, up on the top of Billy Goat Hill. And then we're also working through that expansion of referral pathways to income management. And so that's been a bit of a work in progress, but we are starting to get some really good work there, and both levels of government have been working well together. We are even getting a small amount of traction on whether or not there could be a trial or some sort of pilot of aligning Centrelink payments with alcohol-free days in Alice Springs. So that's really early days, but I'm just acknowledging the collaborative way that the federal government is working with us on some of these issues. So there's plenty of work being done in that root causes space, and I think probably some of the most significant of that is getting kids into school. To quote your former Chief Minister, when kids are in school, they're not committing crimes, and that's certainly what we want to see. And when we've got some of the most hideously low attendance rates for schools, we've got to be throwing everything at giving these kids a future.
Thank you, Chief Minister. Do you agree with your Acting Commissioner, Mr Dole, who said on the 15th of April, you can't arrest your way out of this problem, and it is clear that it is clear and evidenced by what we are seeing across the territory right now?
Well, you can arrest people who do the wrong thing, and that's what our men and women in blue do every single day, and they do it very, very well. What you can't do is stop crime from happening in the first place. So that's where that early intervention work, much greater. And this also goes to, we talked a lot in the previous session around the whole of government coordination of Department of Chief Minister and Cabinet. And so having a much tighter focus and having that agency really bringing other agencies together to be stepping up and doing their part. I think under the previous government, and I talked about this a lot from opposition, was that everything was just being dumped on the police. Like they're like the last line of defence for a lazy government that doesn't want to hold other agencies accountable and do the hard work. They just pour it all onto our police who can't say no. And we recognise that acutely, and that's not what our police are there for. I often say on radio, you would have heard me, police are there to catch the bad guys. That's what police should be doing. Children and families are there to be making sure children are safe, that families are supported, that parents are held accountable, that kids, education is there to make sure kids are going to school. So there's a number of other things that we've stood up to have that greater agency accountability, and everyone's really welcoming that. As I said earlier, because we're putting more decision-making and more ownership back in the hands of public servants in their respective fields, they're able to make that on-the-ground decision-making. And the way we've changed the regional coordination committees also allows for much more frank and fearless discussion and accountability within each other around what is working, what isn't working, and what we need to do to change.
Thank you, Chief. Sorry, I didn't put my microphone off. I apologise to everyone for coughing into the mic. Thank you, Chief Minister. The total offences against the person have jumped, as I said earlier, by 550 cases in the first 7 months of your government and your leadership, which is an increase of 7.4%. Property offences are up by over 500 or 4.5%. How do you justify this surge of crime under your leadership?
Well, I don't know how you're cherry-picking your data, I think, to use a quote. But It really depends how you're cutting up the numbers. So when I look at offences against the person, when you compare December 23 to March 24 with December 24 to March 25, there's an 8.9% increase, which is 369 offences. So I don't know where your 500 is coming from. But as I said, we've got to keep working on this. This is an erosion of accountability unprecedented. So there are young people who, were 5, 6 years old when Labor came to government and have never known accountability or consequences. Their parents have never been held accountable. And so you have an entire generation of young people who are having a shock to the system because all of a sudden we've come in and we've said, no, there needs to be appropriate measures. Young people need to be safe above everything else. They need to have access to education. Their parents need to be held accountable. And then if there's, as they get older, if there's offending, then we need to be holding the young person and their parents accountable for that as well. So we've seen a really significant uptake in family responsibility agreements, which at this point aren't enforceable because the previous Labor government made them not enforceable. So we're doing the legislative work to address that. And I note that the member for Lingiari actually wrote to me pretty soon on coming to government, I can't remember the exact month, echoing that same point that family responsibility agreements need and should be enforceable, and I agree with her wholeheartedly on that one. So I think, 10 months in some ways is a long time in the sense that we've achieved a lot, but in order to unwind the mess of a lack of consequences and accountability over nearly a decade is huge. And if you zoom out more broadly, Labor have been in power, I think it was 19 out of the last 21, 22 years. So it's a very significant period of time where there hasn't been a focus on our police. It hasn't been a focus on law and order. And by me holding the police portfolio as the Chief Minister, that's something hasn't been done in a very, very long time. And it sends a very clear message, not just to our police, but to all of the public service that this is very, very important. And the way we talked about restructuring government agencies with the machinery of government changes, et cetera, law and order and reducing crime is not just the sole remit of police. As I said, they're at the pointy end, they're dealing with the offending. It's a responsibility of multiple agencies. And so we have a very, very firm focus on those three core things because, as I said in my opening statement, we want to rebuild our economy. We want people to enjoy their beautiful lifestyle. But if people don't feel safe, neither of those things can come true. So we've got to be working really, really hard, including if we want tourists to come back. We've got to restore the reputation of somewhere as beautiful and amazing as Alice Springs, who, has hit the headlines for all the wrong reasons in the last few years. And it's driving people away, and that's, just removing opportunities for people in Central Australia. So there's a lot of work to do. We're not shying away from it. And later this year, we've also got reform around the banned drinker register, mandatory alcohol treatment. There's a range of things still to come.
Thank you, Chief Minister. And just on Alice Springs, they've seen home break-ins up 23%, property damage up 32%, sexual offences up 34%, robberies are up to nearly 40%, and I'd say you've probably barely been there through this year since February, I believe, Chief Minister. The community in Central Australia is crying out for leadership. What is your plan to address the surge of crime in Alice Springs, and when will you be there next?
Before Chief Minister answer, if we could just 109, any insults, if we can, I'll just a reminder to the committee, Chief Minister.
So again, opposition leader, it's very difficult to engage meaningfully with you if you're not letting us know where you're picking your numbers from. But
so, Chief Minister, just to clarify, it's the first 7 months of your tenure in government. That's where we've added all of the numbers up in the percentage. So the first 7 months of the CLP government, that's where the figures going. Each monthly data set has been added up to the 7 months. That's where we're getting it from.
Okay. Yeah, and what are you comparing it to? You're just adding it up?
Comparing it to the last 7 months of the former Labor government.
So you won't be able to do that, and you should know that because it was your government that brought in 𝙍𝙀𝙍. So 𝙍𝙀𝙍 started from, was that November? 23. Yeah, November 23. So what that did is I guess, I know John's here, but you know what I mean? It changes how it's calculated, so you can't really compare.
So then
prior
that
to
would have been
point.
12 months after, like you said, comparing apples to apples. So November 2024 would have been the first data comparison since 𝙍𝙀𝙍 was brought in. Obviously, well and truly past that point now. So in regards to the question about Alice Springs, is there a plan to support the community in Alice Springs who have absolutely experienced a surge in crime in the Central Australian region?
Well, I'll answer your question this way. When we compare December 23 to March 24 with December 24 to March 25, which is a traditionally very, very high incidence of crime time in Alice Springs, we're seeing for total offences a decrease of 8.7%, which is a decrease in 253 offences. I might pass to the Acting Commissioner because, of course, he's based in Alice Springs, so has very first-hand knowledge of how crime's tracking over there. As I said, it's patchy and it's not perfect, but I don't accept the doom and gloom that you're painting Alice Springs out to be. Commissioner, if you had anything to add.
Thank you, Leader of the Opposition. Just in addition to that, also incident types in Alice Springs. So we talk about 𝙍𝙀𝙍 data, which is the record of offences, but incident offences that are recorded, incident types that are rung up to the police are recorded by us in Alice Springs, and there's been a decrease in incidents and contacts to the police in Alice Springs over the reporting period as well. So it's not just offence. It's not just a offence data that you can use. You can also use reported incidents to the police, and there's been a decrease over that period. And I can get those figures on the incident data for you if you'd like it.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Leader of the Opposition, please restate the question for the record.
Thank you. Will the government please provide the incident data for Alice Springs?
Chief Minister, do you accept the question?
Yes, thank you.
The question asked by the Leader of the Opposition of the Chief Minister has been allocated the number 1.17. Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And Acting Commissioner Dole, is there a specific plan for Alice Springs to reduce crime?
Thank you, Leader of the Opposition. Commander Grace Spence, that's in charge of Alice Springs, has been embedded in Alice Springs for over 2 years now. He continues to work across the government to target the drivers of crime in Alice Springs, and there will be an effective summer in Central Australia plan again leading into this summer period, and there's planning already way commencing that work.
Thank you. And Chief Minister, just moving to my hometown of Katherine, where 12%, where assaults went up by 12%, serious harm offences jumped by 40%, crime against the persons were at 16-month high. When was the last time you visited Katherine, Chief Minister, and can you please tell the people of Katherine what the plan is to prevent crime and the surge that this town is experiencing currently?
Well, I'll actually be in Katherine tomorrow, Opposition Leader, so I'm very much looking forward to it. Again, if I go to my December 23 to March 24 numbers compared with December 24 to March 25, there's been a 1.4% decrease in all crime types, which is 12 offences. You can see that those small numbers make a big shift, but you know, it's not a small number when you're the victim, right? So it's significant. And I think recently, I mean, there's been certainly a lot of media attention and public commentary about Katherine recently. We've had a really strong police response down there, which has resulted in hundreds of ban drinker orders being issued and really, really proactive policing. We think, I asked whole of government to sort of take a look at what might be driving some of, I don't like to call them spikes in crime, but, sometimes there tends to be a bit more activity than at other times. And I think there were a number of things happening in Katherine over a reasonably short period of time in terms of football, funerals, and some royalty payments, which may or may not have contributed at that period. But I'll just see if, just one moment. Over the school holiday period, we stood up Operation Oxley, and that ran from November, and we had additional resources from Darwin go down to Katherine, and now we've just sent, I think the last 2 squads, we've sent officers down to Katherine, which is terrific, as I know the Katherine team down there really we're looking forward to having that increased operational capability. So in that
Minister, how many graduating squad members did go to Katherine in the last 2 graduations?
I'll just grab that for you, yeah. I will grab that for you. So Operation Oxley, during that 10-week period, just some of the stats, and it was the team did a great job. 1,432 reassurance patrols, more than 100 licensed premise inspectors, 1,094 litres of alcohol seized and destroyed, 3,258 traffic apprehensions, 35 random breath testing stations with 3,248 roadside breath tests conducted, 351 arrests made with a further 58 individuals dealt with by summons or notice to appear. So it was significant, but I'll just grab
Chief
those.
Minister, what was the time frame for that operation?
Yes, that was 10 weeks from November. So I think it ended about the end of January. We don't have it on us, but we can get it for you. Happy to take that on notice about the number of police.
Leader of the Opposition, please restate the question for the record.
Thank you. Chief Minister, can you please identify the number of graduate police officers from the last 2 squad graduations that have gone to Katherine, that have been sent to Katherine?
Chief Minister, do you accept the question?
I sure do. Thank you.
The question asked by the Leader of the Opposition of the Chief Minister has been allocated the number 1.18. Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chief Minister, since coming to office, there has been 4,481 domestic violence-related assaults, 428 more than the previous 7 months. That's an increase of nearly 11%. As you said yourself, any small increase or large increase to any victim is a huge increase. In Darwin, domestic violence assaults are up by nearly 23%. In Katherine, Tennant Creek and regional areas, there are double-digit increases. Is this a damning indictment of your failure to implement effective prevention measures to support police when it comes to domestic violence?
I think it's a damning indictment on the previous Labor government who oversaw domestic violence increase by 82% in 8 years. And again, there are people who think they're above the law. And we're catching up with them, opposition leader. We are catching up with them. And part of what the work we're doing there, of course, includes the work of the Fugitive Task Force, which we stood up late last year, and they've been doing targeted operations around the territory, but they're a permanent fixture, and part of their job is making sure that they're out there getting people with outstanding warrants, and again, people who think they're above the law. But I'll just, again, we can't really use your numbers, opposition leader, because of that SERPRO factor. So I will just find some better data for you.
So, Chief Minister, while you're finding that for me, and I appreciate obviously the officials also doing the same, are you saying that the last 7 months of data that we've been following and referring to is incorrect, which is what the information is that's published?
No. When you're comparing the last 7 months to the previous 7 months, that's the issue, is the comparison. So the 7 months, that's fine. You're calculating that based on the crime stats. That's not a problem. But it's what you're comparing it to, which is why we're comparing December, March to December, March, or we compared what's the latest one? It was March, wasn't it? Yeah, we compared March to March last year. So it's just because if it's pre-SERPRO, then it's the apples and oranges versus apples with apples. Yeah, so certainly opposition leader, domestic violence. I think it's probably, is it the number one call you guys are getting to the desk? Yeah, absolutely. It's the single biggest offence type coming into the 000 centre, and of course then the requisite police response as a result of that. When you look at July 24 to March 25, again, you know, Darwin 0.8% down, Palmerston up 3.8%, Alice Springs down 14.8%, but Katherine up 17.1%. Again, some patchy numbers there, but a lot of work is being done. We've obviously had the coronial as well, and a lot of work is being done across whole of government. Police have done their own work to implement those recommendations, and the Minister for Family and Domestic Violence is looking at the strategy, has rolled over the funding for the organisation so that they've got certainty so that we can do the work to make sure are these programs working? Do we need to be investing money elsewhere? So it continues to be a big focus, but as the Acting Commissioner mentioned, it's the number one call coming through to the 000 Centre.
Thank you, Chief Minister. Are there any specific regional plans around community safety when it comes to domestic violence reduction and prevention in the Territory to be able to support the work of the police if it's the number one incident that police are dealing with across the Northern Territory?
Would you like me to bring Assistant Commissioner White up? He manages domestic violence, if you'd like. Is
yes,
that all right?
please. That would be helpful.
Chief Minister, if you could please introduce.
This is Michael White, and the fancy title is coming. Besides this, sorry, I know it's Michael's particularly focuses on the domestic and family violence space. So perhaps Opposition Leader, if you just repeat your question, and then Assistant Commissioner, I'm happy for you to answer.
Thank you, Chief Minister, and thank you, Commissioner White. The question is around the community safety plans about prevention and reduction of domestic and family violence, sexual violence in the Northern Territory. If it is the number one incident that police are dealing with, do we have specialised regional community safety plans or regional town plans that are in place to support the work of police, but also understanding what the Chief Minister's spoken about, this cross-agency collaboration, understand that, very well aware of that, but we continue, unfortunately, to see domestic violence incidents and assaults rise, and to, unfortunately, what we've seen over the last 12 or so months, you know, deaths from domestic violence that the police have unfortunately had to be the first responders to. So are there community safety plans regionally based around the reduction of domestic violence?
Thank you, Member of the Opposition, Leader of the Opposition. Yes, Michael White, I'm the Assistant Commissioner, Domestic Family, Sexual Violence and Youth. Under the funding arrangements that are being published for next financial year, one of the key improvements or reforms that has occurred is the rollout of the co-responder model across Darwin, Katherine, Tennant Creek, Alice Springs and one regional location. That's purely focused on joint response by police, non-government agencies in respect of working with victim survivors and also perpetrators of the violence, with Department of Children and Families working collaboratively together to early intervene with both the victims and the perpetrators to try and realign the behaviour of perpetrators, but also provide that ability to support victims earlier through greater engagement and referral into other services. The other component that's been working for significant time now, it's rolled out in 2012 originally in Alice Springs, was the Family Safety Framework, which is again a joint response to immediate risk of harm or imminent harm of victims of domestic violence, where all agencies involved in those regional groups are working together to share information to ensure everybody is working together to provide that support to victims predominantly, but also the behaviour change programs as well to make sure there's intervention to prevent further harm.
Yeah, thank you, Assistant Commissioner. So in relation to what you're describing in terms of agencies working together, can you just talk through a bit more what that might look like in a tangible way?
Certainly I can. Thank you, Member for Johnson. So the co-responder is designed to expand in relation to the pilot program that ran in Alice Springs since last year. That is aimed at co-location as well as that cooperation and working together and at times rolling out and attending to premises and talking to people and engaging with them at the time. Each area will be slightly different depending on the service providers available. Obviously, geographically, there's not one, apart from police and Department of Children and Families, who will be the consistent people involved. But in Alice Springs, it's the WASCA, the Women's Shelter of Alice Springs, and Tangengia Council are working with us to provide that support. In other areas, that'll be all dependent on the availability of the resource, which we will yet to negotiate with those people and those organisations to roll out.
And when you say in other areas, I understand there are other areas that have been flagged that this model be rolled out?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So we've been working with, in Darwin particularly, there's a number of agencies who have already committed to working with them. I can't publicly talk about that yet, but certainly they're working through setting up their standard operating procedures together, and then we'll roll out in Katherine, Tennant Creek and one remote location.
Okay, thank you. And just a question, sorry, just also from the Leader of the Opposition, in terms of community safety plans, are you able to tell us how many of the 63 local police stations have a current community safety plan?
That's outside of my remit. That would be regional and remote
I'll put that
policing.
aside.
Yeah.
I think this one might be, this is actually a question from the member for Mulka, talked about the implementation of the recommendations from the coronial. The question is, in 2019, there was a successful 10-week trial of Aboriginal interpreters in the Joint Emergency Services Communication Centre. Last year, as part of the coronial, there was a recommendation that interpreters were embedded in the communication centre. Has this been budgeted for? And given the high number of Aboriginal language speakers in the Northern Territory, is there any reasonable rationale for not doing it?
I can probably answer that.
Thank you.
So that was recommendation 10 in one of the coronial inquests, and so police have accepted that recommendation in full and are obviously the ones leading how that will happen. I actually had the opportunity when I was at the desk to be there when there were language speakers, and it's pretty amazing. So the cultural reform team within police have been embedded in the JESC, and additional language speakers are commencing on the 17th of February. All JESC officers have been trained to use the Aboriginal Interpreter Service through the JESC, and it's something that we continue to grow and work on, I suppose.
So to clarify, people are trained to use the existing Aboriginal Interpreter Service, but there aren't interpreters embedded in the JES, is that correct? Which I understand was the recommendation from the coronial.
Sorry, Member for Johnson. No, we have had Aboriginal interpreters embedded in the JESC for a trial period of time, but we're still working on making that a permanent fixture. Okay. So that trial did commence. It was successful. We're working on how we can make that a more permanent feature.
Is there a budget item for that?
There's not a specific budget. That's encompassed in our Community Resilience Engagement Command budget.
Thank you. And just through the chair, while we're talking about the coronial, Chief Minister, you said that the police have implemented or have taken on board various recommendations from the coronial. I just wonder if you could outline what they are.
Yes, I can. So recommendation 8, which was information sharing through Support Link, that was accepted by Northern Territory Police in full and is being led by Northern Territory Police. They're working with DCDD to review Support Link's operational protocols and are going through that work now. So that work is ongoing. We just talked about 10. 11 is the PART training. And this recommendation was accepted in full and is being led by Northern Territory Police. So as at April, we've had 10 in-person training sessions, and 327 police have completed that in-person training. And so that work is just continuing to be rolled out right across the force. Recommendation 12, which is a permanent Northern Territory Police domestic family and sexual violence command. So that recommendation has been accepted in full by police, and again is being led by police. And so that reform is happening in line with Action Plan 2. So that work is happening to date. Recommendation 13, family harm coordination. That's been accepted in full by police and is being led by police. And so an audit team is conducting their work of DV matters right across the territory. Some positions have been expanded as a part of that as well. And so that's the recommendations that relate specifically to police.
Thank you.
Leader of the Opposition.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the Chief Minister and those questions. Chief Minister, it's been 200 days of rising crime under your leadership. Again, how will Territorians be assured that work that you are doing is actually going to make a difference to make the community safer?
Well, I think the big point of difference between our government and the previous Labor government is people know that we will do whatever it takes to make the territory safe, and we've evidenced that through our actions. So I think actions speak much louder than words. We had 8 years of a government that talked reams and volumes of guff and fluff that just never... The rubber never hit the road. People were absolutely beside themselves. We saw people leaving, businesses shutting their doors. The territory was, by all accounts, going backwards. So we've come in very strong and very early and shown the strength of the legislation we're willing to put through the Parliament. An example with Declan's Law. I mean, people were crowing about Declan's Law being too strong, which we felt that Declan's Law was an important piece of significant reform to target people on bail and reoffending and repeat and serious violent offenders. We obviously, from that point, had the tragic death of Mr. 𝙍𝙀𝙇𝙬𝙎𝙎 and wasted no time in recalling Parliament, something that I don't think had been done in a very, very long time, to make sure that we now have Australia's strongest bail laws. So we will, I talk a lot about our laws needing to reflect community expectation. We've reversed a number of changes that Labor made as a result of just this permissive approach to offending. They put the rights of offenders above the rights of people to be safe. And, the territory's in the mess it's in now as a result of that. And we are having to systematically unpack and work through that and meet all of the deficiencies. So, we can strengthen a law, and then corrections has been underfunded and buried in the bottom of the Attorney General's department for far too long, not able to meet prisoner numbers. We saw the previous Labor government, utilising watch houses, prisons, so we've had to do a lot of work on that. Legal aid is another example of where they were just continuously getting this Band-Aid funding, whereas we've fixed and addressed that issues because people having good legal representation is better justice for everyone. We've had to invest more in our courts to get the court systems moving. And so the legacy of issues inherited under the previous Labor government are monumental, and across the entire crime, from crime prevention right through to addressing crime, through the courts or through the prisons. So again, I talked about school attendance numbers being really low, family responsibility agreements being non-existent, lack of accountability on parents. The list goes on and on and on. And so I'll say to you what I say to all Territorians, and that's judge us on our actions. And right now, whilst the data is patchy 10 months in, I don't think anyone would say we're not taking a very strong approach to this and doing whatever we can to make sure that community safety is our number one priority. And we've done everything from reshaping our entire government and the systems within government and the accountability within government to deliver on the three core promises that we took to the election, right through to being on the ground with the people, interfacing with the systems or the laws, and seeking better seeking guidance from them about how we can continue to do everything we can to make the Territory a safer place. So that work will continue. I know your goal is to make cheap political point scoring about how many days, and there's not zero crime after 200 days, and that's a matter for you, opposition leader. Fill your boots. My job is to make sure that as Chief Minister, I am focused on community safety being a number one priority, not just of our police, because obviously that's what they pull on that blue uniform to do every single day. It's across whole of government. How are we supporting better outcomes for young people, stronger families, making sure that there is jobs and opportunities for people living right across the Northern Territory, that there is hope and aspiration for the future, and that we have a territory that everyone can, understand that they've got as much opportunity and access to opportunity as anyone else. And so that's the work we'll continue to do.
Thank you, Chair. My question, Chief Minister.
Opposition Leader, before you ask your next question, I have an answer to one. Is that okay? I don't mean to interrupt you. So just in response to question 1.18, which was the Katherine Police question. So from squad 157, we had 11 go to Katherine, and then from squad 158, we had 5 to Katherine. So it was 16.
Are you happy with that, Leader of the Opposition?
Yeah, thank you. I feel like that question can come off the list. Thank you. Through the Chair, question around to the Acting Commissioner around the Chief Minister's recent public statement that calls for an independent investigation into the recent deaths in custody in Alice Springs, where the Chief Minister called those asking for an independent inquiry unhelpful and uneducated. Is this a fair assessment of people asking for that inquiry?
Well, the questions come to me.
I'm just going. So we won't ask our public servants for opinions in accordance with Standing Order 109. Would you like to rephrase the question?
No, I'll answer that question. I'm very happy to answer that question, Mr. Chair. The comments being made by federal members of parliament are quite frankly appalling, and they should know better. Now, this is a very sad time for the community. Obviously, our police have an incredibly important job to do, and the politicisation of this issue helps no one. It does not support our police to do their important work, the coroner to do her important work, families who are grieving, communities who want answers. And so I stand by the comments I've made because, quite frankly, Senator McCarthy and Marion Scrimgeour have been members of parliament for a very, very long time, both at the territory level and at a federal level, and they most certainly should know better. Now, I'm very happy to pass to the Acting Commissioner to talk about why the Northern Territory Police are best placed to do this work, but I do urge all people with a voice and with power to influence is to be using that voice for good and to be reinforcing the strength of our institutions, particularly the Northern Territory Police Force, whose job it is to investigate matters, support the coroner, and do that important work. So I'm happy to pass on to the Acting Commissioner to explain why the Northern Territory Police are best placed to do this work.
Thank you, Leader of the Opposition. I think that the comments are really in relation to a misunderstanding of the processes in place in the Northern Territory and the fact that the Northern Territory Police are the statutory responsibility to investigate all crimes that occur in the Northern Territory. So it's not simply a matter that we can bring in an external body that doesn't have any powers. The Police Administration Act establishes the Northern Territory Police Force for the purpose of preventing, investigating and detecting crime. So that's not something we can just hand to somebody else. And if we were to bring in an independent investigator, they have to be sworn in as members of the Northern Territory Police Force in any case to utilise our powers under the Act. So that's for the criminal investigation. The coroner is another issue where it's her jurisdiction and she has the ability to bring in whatever assistance she requires to investigate the coronial aspect, which is far more broad-reaching and covers many more aspects than just the criminal investigation. So that's really an explanation of the process and why we're best placed to do it.
Can I ask just a follow-up? Thank you. So I understand your answer. What policies and procedures are in place, do the NT Police have in place to address either actual or perceived conflicts of interest, e.g. police investigating police?
Yeah, thank you, Member for Johnson. There's quite strict policy and procedure in place in relation to serious incidents or deaths involving police contact with the public. So there's a standing general order on that. We've also got oversight of the Northern Territory Ombudsman and the Northern Territory ICAC and direction of the coroner as well in regards to investigating this matter. So the oversight mechanisms are well established in the Northern Territory, and so are our procedures and policies in place. And this is being directed by an Assistant Commissioner of Crime, so a senior executive member of the Northern Territory Police Force that's also overseeing those investigations.
And a further question, what are the NT Police policies, procedures and practices in relation to standing down officers when they're subject to a criminal investigation?
So that's a decision for the Professional Standards Command, and it depends what's being investigated and what evidence is available at the time. So just because a matter sits in the current realm of a criminal investigation doesn't necessarily dictate that a member would be stood down. Depends how much evidence is available and what stage the criminal investigation reaches before that decision's made in conjunction with Professional Standards Command.
Thank you. And one more question just from the member.
Yeah, one more and then we'll go back to the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you. Oh, sorry. From the member for Mooka, can you confirm that police will allow the family of 𝙍𝙀𝙇𝙀𝙑𝘍 the opportunity to see the CCTV footage and body-worn camera footage of their loved one in Coles store in the lead up to, during and after the police interaction with him?
I can't confirm that because I'm not leading that investigation, and I can't give assurances on behalf of those that are. But I'll probably, a simple answer to that is while it remains a criminal investigation, that footage is an exhibit and that integrity of that needs to be maintained.
Thank you. Thank you.
Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Commissioner and Chief Minister. Chief Minister, this morning the Northern Territory Police Association put out a statement condemning your government on your latest pay offer to police officers as insulting and inadequate, and they accused you of betraying frontline officers and breaking your law and order promise to police. Chief Minister, let's start with a simple question that was put out in the NTPA media release. It's a yes or no question, a yes or no answer, which is what they're seeking. Chief Minister, do you believe the current pay offer to Northern Territory police officers is fair and rewarding?
Thank you very much, Opposition Leader. So we have a whole of government wages policy, which is 3%, which is above CPI. And obviously the Northern Territory Police Association have a very important job to do in negotiating a pay deal with OCPE and the Minister for Public Employment. So there will be, a lot of water to go under this bridge, and that's how negotiations work. There is backwards and forwards, and I respect that process, and our police do an incredible job. We want to see them get a great pay deal, and questions around this really are for the Minister for Public Employment.
Thank you, Chief Minister, and just for the benefit of Hansard through the Chair, can I please table the NTPA media release, because I'm going to quote from it just so there's a record of where I'm quoting from. How do I do that? Just table it? Yep, just table it. All right, great. Thank you. Chief Minister, the NTPA in their media release today said, and I quote from the NTPA President Nathan Finn, when it comes to a time to show up for police with meaningful recognition and pay, the Chief Minister is nowhere to be seen. Chief Minister, why are you not meeting your commitments to police that you made prior to the election when it comes to paying police what they are duly rewarded for the service to the Northern Territory?
Thank you, Opposition Leader. I've already answered this question. We are in an EBA process. There are I think, 8 EBAs this year. So we will be seeing a lot of this type of debate play out in the public sphere, as is very, very normal for that EBA time. Again, I encourage you to ask the Minister for Public Employment questions specific to the EBA. As Police Minister, I want to see our police get a great pay deal, and we certainly value the work that they do, as evidenced by all of the reforms, funding, support, legislative powers that we've been able to deliver. And obviously, as part of an EBA, you know, there is backwards and forwards, and this is yet to run its course.
Thank you, Chief Minister. Noting in your budget the revised figure of 520.6 million has increased to 557.9 million in the budget. Would you say that you are preparing for the NT-EBA with the police, which will come from the police budget essentially? So I know you're kicking the can down the road to Minister 𝙍𝙀𝙇𝙍𝙍, but in terms of the police budget, is that ample in replying to the EBA request for more than the 3%, 3.37% that has been offered to police currently?
So the police budget has increased by about $36 million on last year, which is significant, and that's for a range of things. Obviously, the whole of government wages policy is 3%, but I'm not going to speculate or hypothesise about where all of this might land into the future.
Chief Minister, what message do you think it sends to the frontline officers who are waiting for the EBA to finalise, who you said yourself, exhausted, under-resourced and facing record attrition rates when it comes to making sure that our police are the best paid in the country?
Yeah, it's great. Our police are the best paid in the country, and we're very, very proud of that. And we've actually had some really good results with attrition. I don't know if anyone has them on them, but I think we saw some of the best numbers in about 5 years or 3 years. But I'll just grab that. Hang on a second.
Thank you. And while you're grabbing that, when you say highest paid in the country, are you also attributing that to the inclusion of the housing entitlement that police receive?
Yep, one moment, Opposition Leader. So when you look at 24-25, attrition's at 4.58%, and that's down from 8% the previous year under the Labor government, which was 9% the year before that, which was 10.65% the year before that, and 8.5% the year before that. So we're down to, in 19-20, it was 4.53, and in 24-25, we're 4.58. So it's the best it's been in a very, very long time. Plenty of work to do. Obviously, we'd love to see those attrition rates come right down. And ultimately, it's one of the fastest, most effective ways in which we can put more police out on the front line is to stop our police from leaving in the first place, which has been a core focus for us. So that's just to answer that question. Remind me of your last question, Opposition Leader.
Does your claim around having the highest paid police officers in the country, does that also include the housing entitlements that our police officers receive?
Yeah, it does.
Chief Minister, when it comes to the responsibility of the police pay deal, you are obviously the Chief Minister and very proudly the Police Minister, as you keep telling everyone. However, you are the one that made the promise to police that they will be fully backed and looked after and resourced under your leadership. Now you're hiding behind your junior minister who can't even explain what's on the table before the EBA. So how do you explain that to our police officers, Chief Minister?
Well, I don't accept your condescending assessment of Minister 𝙍𝙀𝙇𝙍𝙍, who is the Public Service Minister, or OCPE, who are the people who negotiate EBAs. As I said, there will be 8 this year. So,
Chief Minister, just to clarify, I'm not condescending to. I'm just going to quote from the NTPA media release.
Leader of the Opposition.
To use their words,
Leader of the
Chair.
Opposition, the Chief Minister was answering the question. I ensured you're heard in silence. Will now listen to the Chief Minister.
So are you quoting Junior Minister from the release?
Well, again, these are not my words, Chief Minister, but the NTPA have said that Public Service Minister 𝙍𝙀𝙇𝙀𝙎𝙏𝙍 problem, that you're kicking it down the road, a minister who can barely articulate what's even been put on the table for police when asked in Parliament. That's their words, not mine.
Okay, well, that's, I think, rather derogatory language, but that's a matter for the NTPA. And so we will continue to negotiate in good faith. That's what governments have to do, and that's the work that will continue to be done.
Thank you, Chair. And to the Police Minister, the Chief Minister, do you believe that the pay offer is a fair and rewarding deal for the NT Police? That's the yes or no question they'd like to answer.
Yes, well, 3% is a position we took for whole of government because 3% is higher than the CPI rate, which means it represents real wages growth, whereas under the previous police CBA, I'm stretching my memory a little bit, but I believe the last CBA was 433. Is that right? 433 when CPI was tracking much, much higher than that. So, again, the negotiations are playing out. I understand the NTPA, are representing their members as they should. They're doing their job. We're doing ours. And at the end of all of this, there'll be a pay rise for police and everyone will be happy.
I have some of your rose-coloured glasses as well, Chief Minister. That would be helpful. Through the Chair, Chief Minister, when it comes to supporting police, are there other elements that are on the table or off the table during the EBA process, such as the housing entitlements that has been out in the media recently?
Yeah, so again, all of these detailed questions are for the Minister for Public Service.
So despite making commitments to police that you will be the police minister that champions police and that rewards police for their hard work, you don't have an answer for us today?
As I said, opposition leader, you've got a job to do, the NTPA have a job to do, and I have a job to do. And at times like EBA negotiations, those three roles will collide. But ultimately, there will be an end to all of this, and the NTPA is focused on a negotiation. The Minister for Public Service is focused on a negotiation. I'm doing what I can to make sure we've got the right budget for our police, that they've got the laws and the powers they need, that we've got more prison beds so that we can get prisoners out of watch houses, that we've got more boots on the ground, that our attrition rate is dropping so that we have, again, more boots on the ground, that our police are feeling heard and valued, that we have the wellbeing and mental health support for them. So there's a lot of work being done. I understand pay is a really important component, and even without whatever this pay deal looks like, we've been able to significantly drop attrition by nearly half in just the short time that we've been in government. And I'm confident that if we continue to listen and support our police, that will be the case. I mean, I find it ironic to some extent that you were sitting here questioning me earlier, almost defending your federal colleagues on their attack on our police over the deaths in custody investigations, and yet you're asking me whether we back our police, and we back our police unequivocally. It's a very important part of our plan to reduce crime, and I think it would pay to remind you, if you go back and look at the NTPA surveys, the last three showed in excess of 90% of police didn't believe the Labor government supported them, and it's very clear to any police officer to see that Labor is continuing that trajectory of failing to back our police.
Leader of the Opposition, do you have any? We'll break for 10 minutes. Time now is 4:05. We will reconvene at 4:15. And we'll reconvene. We are currently taking questions on the statement. I'll hand over to Member for Arafura in the place of Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Chair. So this is probably to the Commissioner. So how many sworn police officers are currently in the NT Police Force?
Thank you for the question, Member for Arafura. Just a few minutes and I'll get the figure for you. So the number of sworn members is 1743.
Can you provide a bit of a breakdown by rank, by station or by division?
Thank you, Member for Arafura. Not by station, division, but I can give you a breakdown of rank.
Thank you.
Can I ask some? Can I ask some follow-up questions?
We
on
will
that?
we'll keep it to one question at a time because I notice it. Otherwise, it just builds up and
Okay,
we're
sorry.
losing track.
It's just in relation to the same thing, but I'll,
Yeah.
I'll read it.
It's in this, Chief. It was in the numbers. in the written questions.
So, Member for Arafura, that it's in the answers to the written questions that you received. Would you like me to read out the ranks?
Is it short or?
It's not that
No.
short, but I can. That's made up of this one here. 3.89 Aboriginal Community Police, 4 Aboriginal Community Police First Class, 5 Acting Commander of Police, 267.2 Constables, 299.2 Constable First Class, 2 Examiners, 80.99 Police Auxiliaries, 23 Police Auxiliary First Class, 22 Police Auxiliary Recruit, 4.5 Principal Examiner, 59 Recruit Constable, 34 Remote Sergeant, 42.84 Senior Aboriginal Community Police Officer, 270.62 Senior Constable, 55.92 Senior Constable First Class, 8.6 Senior Examiner, 80.74 Senior Police Auxiliary, 4 Senior Principal Examiner, 90.25 Senior Sergeants, 271.88 Sergeants, and 45.96 Superintendents.
Just to follow up on that, are you able to tell us how many vacancies there are at each rank? I'm also interested in unsworn positions, so I don't know if you've got that data.
Yep, unsworn, Administrative Officer 2, 39.2, 57.55 Administrative Officer 3, 53.3 Administrative Officer 4, 27.95 Administrative Officer 5, 31.09 Administrative Officer 6, 24.4 Administrative Officer 7, 1 Chief Pilot, 1 Executive Officer 2, 4 Physical 2, 1.5 Physical 3, 2 Physical 5, 6 Professional 1, 3.5 Professional 2, 16.4 Professional 3, 21.9 Senior Administrative Officer 1, 13 Senior Administrative Officer 2, 7 Senior Pilot NT Police, 7.5 Senior Professional Officer 1, 1 Senior Professional Officer 2, 3 Technical 2, 8.5 Technical 3, 9 Technical 4, 5 Technical 5, 1 Technical 5X, 4 Technical 6, 2 Technical 6X. And then for vacancies, we're very happy to take that on notice.
Thank you. So,
Like that on notice, Member for Johnston.
yeah, so how many vacancies of sworn and unsworn police at each rank and level? Thank you.
Chief Minister, do you accept the question?
I do.
And could I, so
The
just one,
question,
oh, sorry.
the question asked by the member for Johnston of the Chief Minister has been allocated the number 1.19. Member for Johnston.
And just in terms of the unsworn positions, ALO's unsworn positions, and what level are they at?
Yeah, Member for Johnson, ALOs are at AO2 and we've got some AO4 senior ALOs.
And are you able to tell me how many ALOs there are currently?
Yeah, the total number of ALOs is 81 currently.
Okay. I'll go back to you. I've got some more questions, but if you want to keep going, do you have more?
Yep, yeah. Just to follow on, How many sworn officers are on extended sick leave?
We can take that question on notice, Member for Arafura.
The member for Arafura, please restate the question for the record.
How many sworn officers are on extended sick leave?
Chief Minister, do you accept the question?
Yes, we do.
The question asked by the member for Arafura of the Chief Minister has been allocated the number 1.20.
Could I ask a follow-up question to that, which is in relation to remote policing specifically? What's the average number of days of sick leave remote sworn officers are taking? And just in terms of leave, what's the current rate of excess recreation and long service leave broken down by division and region in relation to remote policing?
We can take that on notice.
Member for Johnston, please restate the question for the record.
Thank you. What is the average number of days of sick leave remote sworn officers are taking? What is the current rate of excess recreation and long service leave broken down by division and region? Thank you.
Chief Minister, do you accept the question?
Yes.
The question asked by the member for Johnston of the Chief Minister has been allocated the number 1.21. Member for Arafura.
I believe you've answered this question earlier. What is the current attrition rate from March?
Yes, so for 24-25, we're sitting at 4.58. And again, we're really proud of that number. Compared to last year, it was at 8%. So we've nearly halved it. Going back to 22-23, it was 9.16%. 21-22, it was 10.65%. 2020-21, it was 8.51%. So it hasn't been since 2019-20 that we've seen those mid 4.5% numbers. In 19-20, it was 4.53, and we're sitting at 4.58. So as I said, plenty of work to do, but we're really focused on making sure our police are supported, making sure that we have, health and wellbeing, for example, that they feel empowered to be able to do their job. We're really, in times gone by, we'd call it a catch and release program that police felt like they were running, whereas now it's catch and caught, and that's really, I think, making a big difference. We're really empowering them to be part of how we can drive further solutions. So plenty of the law reform that we've done and that we're working on, because we're working on some significant projects at the moment, including the Youth Justice Act review and changes to the Traffic Act, and that's all come from police out on the front line that we've been talking to. And I know the police are really fostering a culture of making sure that the front line feel like they can bring these issues forward, which is really empowering for them, and it helps them to feel connected to the bigger picture. So that, on top of the work we're doing with holding other agencies accountable and providing better supports and accountability for the roles that they have, so that everything's not falling back onto police. Again, plenty more work to do, but these numbers are going in the right direction, and we want to see it keep going that way.
One quick follow-up from that. Sorry, through the chair, are exit interviews held for police? Yeah. Can you give us the participation rate of exit interviews for sworn officers?
Yeah, so it's not compulsory, and it's been like that for some time. There was, under the previous government, a third-party arrangement that was doing those those exit interviews, but that's been discontinued. There was just very, very low participation rate, which meant the data that was being collected is not really that useful. So there's an internal model now, and reports are that there's been a much bigger improvement in participation. So that is progressing. We don't have the numbers of people in front of me, but some of the top reasons cited during those exit interviews were lifestyle, which really reinforces to me why that part of our 3-point focus is so important, because livability, when you come home from work, you want to be able to enjoy your life. And so lifestyle was cited as one of the issues. Closer proximity to family, again, it reinforces to us the work we're doing with airlines and connectivity, and as part of our rebuilding the economy strategy. Connectivity is one of the key components of it. Job fatigue, so obviously, very, very high demand pressures on our police, more trauma, more serious incidents that they're going to, even increase in road fatalities. It's meaning our frontline workers are being exposed to so much more trauma more often, and workplace risk. So they were the 4 top cited reasons.
Thank you. Could I take on notice the actual participation rate?
Yeah, we certainly can. We might not have it, but if not, then we'll detail that in the answer.
Thank you.
So, Member for Johnston, please restate the question for the record.
What is the participation rate for exit interviews for sworn officers?
Chief Minister.
Sorry. No.
Chief Minister, do you accept the question?
I do.
The question asked by the member for Johnston of the Chief Minister has been allocated the number 1.22.
And just one follow-up to that, through the chair. I hear you saying that and we have all heard about the impact of policing on police. I acknowledge the NTPA's concerns for staff welfare and wellbeing. I'm wondering if you can advise on the status of the review and welfare strategy.
Yes, we can. Yeah. It might be a good time, Member for Johnston, to bring up Assistant Commissioner Janelle Tonkin, because this is her area that she looks after. So I'll talk to some of the work that the Wellbeing Reform team are doing. Obviously, Ms Tonkin can speak to it in a lot more detail. Just noting that there's currently a coronial into Mr 𝙍𝙀𝙇𝙀𝙑, so that will undoubtedly, provide police with more ways in which we can improve our support to our police. So in 2021, there was an independent review, and it made recommendations on, short, medium and long-term goals. And so this was rolled out, I think, prior to the separation of the Tri-Service. And so that still remains a service that is being shared across fire and emergency services as well. So maybe, Janelle, I don't know if you're happy to speak to the work.
Yes, thank you, Chief Minister. So the implementation of the Wellbeing Strategy is supported by 2 teams. That's the Wellbeing Reform Team and the Wellbeing Services Unit. Both of those sit under my portfolio. The Wellbeing Reform Team They're charged with leading the implementation of the elements under the strategy, and the Wellbeing Services Unit, they're the multidisciplinary team that consists of psychologists, social workers, occupational rehabilitation advisors, peer support coordinators, chaplains, and the administrative support staff. Now, they work in Alice Springs and in Darwin to support our workforce with a range of services. We're also supported by the Employee Assistance Program, which is specifically designed to meet the needs of first responders, and that aligns with the commitments under the Wellbeing Strategy. So effectively that ensures that if the team are unable to meet the services themselves for the workforce, we have a secondary option for the workforce to be able to reach out to get support.
Thank you. And in terms of the police review, the Kelly report, are you able to advise whether any of those recommendations have been implemented, what the status of them are?
Are you still talking about health and wellbeing, or?
Yeah, in relation to health and wellbeing. While the Chief Minister's looking, Assistant Commissioner, I'm wondering whether there are... Oh, sorry.
Excuse me, Chair. I just want to make sure that the questions follow up to, because it's still the member for our viewers.
Thank you. Yes. I'm happy to... forward at this moment.
Yes, and I will also, so after this question, I will hand back to the member for Arafura. However, I'll note we also only have 1 more hour with the Chief Minister. So if the opposition, I guess, could move quickly on their questions so we can give other members an opportunity.
So in terms of the Kelly review, recommendations 17 and 18 were around that wellbeing space. So 18 is complete with the wellbeing strategy, which Assistant Commissioner Tonkin was explaining, and then 17 is around, modernising, I suppose you could say, the Police Administration Act, which is ongoing work.
Can I ask this? It's just whether or not you're able to provide any. Oh, sorry, total mental blank. I'll move on because my brain just stopped
I
working.
will give you the floor next, member for Johnston, member for Arafura.
Thank you, Chair. How many incidents have been recorded where police officers have been assaulted while on duty?
Thank you very much, member for Arafura. Needless to say, assaults on our police are totally unacceptable and something that our government condemns in the strongest possible terms. It's why we move forward with our mandatory sentencing for around assaults on police, and in fact any workers in that first sittings of Parliament within about 8 weeks of coming to government. And we want to send a really strong message to people that it is not acceptable, and you will face the full consequences of the law if you do. And despite that, we continue to see people lashing out at our police. So the numbers, one moment. Yeah, so in total there were 252 individual officers who were assaulted for the reporting period.
Thank you, Chief Minister. Next question. How is the anti-racism strategy progressing?
Yeah, thank you. So that work has been done, and Leanne Little is leading that work, and so we're ready to go. But the coroner has deferred the coronial, so we're just waiting for that to happen first, and then we'll be ready.
Thank you, Chief Minister. Can you advise where the independent inquiry into senior police hiring practices, and when can we expect to see the report?
Yeah, thank you very much. So obviously Justice Blow is continuing that work. We're hoping, for it to be finalised as soon as it can be, but I was really clear from the start that he's got the opportunity to take as much time as he needs, supported by 𝙍𝙀𝙇𝙀𝙑 with that work. So hopefully not too much longer, but again, it's a matter for him, and he's got to do what he's got to do.
Final question. Thank you, Chief Minister. What steps are underway to recruit the police commissioner role?
No, none. So we'll wait for the Blow inquiry to finish, and then we'll move forward.
Sorry, Mr Chair, just on the tail end of Member for Arafura's question, Chief Minister, will the cost for that inquiry be coming from the police budget, 𝙍𝙀𝙇𝙀𝙑, or a combination of both?
I'm happy to get you that information, but we will be making it public as well as the report being made public. Whose bucket of money it comes from, how much longer have we got? Someone in the next 50 minutes will have it to me and I'll let you know.
Would you like it on notice, Leader of the Opposition?
Might as well, just in case we don't get the answer before the question time finishes.
Leader of the Opposition, please restate the question for the record.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Chief Minister, can you please let the committee know who will be paying for the independent inquiry by Justice Blow? Will it be the police department? Will it be 𝙍𝙀𝙇𝙀𝙑, or will it be a combination of both?
Thank you.
Chief Minister, do you accept the question?
I do accept the question.
The question asked by the Leader of the Opposition of the Chief Minister has been allocated. Number 1.23. I will now give the floor to the member for Johnston.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, Assistant Commissioner, what I was wondering was whether you could provide the strategy that you referenced in relation to wellbeing, whether you could provide a copy of it.
Yeah, that's an internal document, member for Johnston. So that's something the police use to guide all of the work that they're doing. I mean, some of that work, we can go through a lot of it with you, but it includes mental health first aid training, a healthy eating program. Assistant Commissioner Tonkin spoke to the chaplain services, the peer support program. There's a partnership with Fordham Australia, who provide physical and mental health support as well. We have the Respectful Workplace training program, the WellCheck training program, and the employee assistance program. So there's a number of components to it, including psychosocial support after obviously traumatic events that our police are being exposed to, and the early intervention program as part of that strategy as well. And as I said earlier, that goes to recommendations 17 and 18 of the police review.
So just to clarify, it's an internal document available to police internally? Yeah, okay, thank you. Just following on from the questions from the member for Arafura in relation to the racism review. Last year in the transcript of estimates, we heard that $170,000 was allocated to the Anti-Discrimination Commission from the Attorney-General to conduct a review into systemic racism within the police force. And further to this, the Attorney-General committed up to $300,000. Can you comment on that review?
That would be a question for the Attorney General.
Okay, thank you. And in relation to the role of Leanne Little within the police force, I understand, I heard you comment on that and say that you're waiting for the outcome of the coronial. She has been in that role for probably 12 months now. Are you able to give an update on anything that's happened within that time frame?
What do you mean?
I mean, what over that 12 months, what has been the focus of that review? Has there been any outcomes? Have there been any recommendations noting that we are still waiting on the outcome of the 𝙍𝙀𝙇𝙬𝙎𝙎 coronial?
Yeah, so Ms Little is doing a wide range of work within the police force. It's not limited to the racism strategy. It's work across our ALO streams, around cultural reform, all sorts of different things that she's working on.
So is there a strategy around the racism review?
What do you mean racism review?
Well, that's my understanding from last year's estimates that and a media interview where in 2024 where she stated that her position would be to implement an anti-racism strategy within the police force.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's correct. So that's done, but we now are waiting the Walker coronial.
Okay, so that work has been done, but it's not publicly released yet. Thank you. I'd just like to go to some questions about remote policing. Do you want to go?
Member for Johnston, you have the floor. So
Thank
any
you.
questions you want to ask?
Thank you, Chair. Actually, I'll pause and maybe can come back to me just so we don't. If you.
Member for Karama.
Thank you. Chief Minister, as you know, probably the biggest single issue I have in my electorate of Karama, and which covers Malak as well as Nucky Lagoon, but is certainly crime and antisocial behaviour associated with public housing. And I know similarly some of my colleagues in Palmerston, particularly the member for Drysdale and the member for Blaine, will probably have similar concerns. So I just want to go back to what is the coordination, collaboration that the police use to work with people like Public Housing, Mission Australia or Venture Housing? Do you work together to tackle some of those issues?
Yeah, I might ask Assistant Commissioner Tonkin, thank you, and James O'Brien's back there. But to go to your point, so it's probably a little bit different depending on where we are in the territory, but certainly in Alice Springs, for example, we have daily patroller meetings, which are fantastic. I've been to many, many, many of them, and that has all of the stakeholders involved. But then there's, you know, I don't know, standing committees, I guess, at government levels where they're meeting. But I'll pass on to Acting Assistant Commissioner O'Brien.
Thank you, Chief Minister, and thank you, Member for Karama. At the moment, I run the Territory Community Safety portfolio, and that has the Territory Community Safety Coordination Centre as part of it, and they're stationed out at Nightcliff Police Station along with the Territory Safety Division as well. And what they do is they coordinate cross-government services, frontline services, so councils, DCF, education, in particular FISOs, so public housing safety officers, as well as transit safety officers. And what we do is we use local intelligence, so from all of those frontline services, as well as members of the community, such as yourself, we receive information in about what are your local concerns and your hotspots. And what we do then is we target joint operations. So you would have recently seen some operations with public housing safety officers, PORU, which is the private security company, our Territory Safety Division officers in high visibility outfits, and they went all the way through Malak and the Malak housing estates to try and combat that antisocial behaviour. So it's not just about going in there and dealing with what they see in terms of antisocial behaviour, but it's actually engaging with those people that live there to try and find out why, and also try and find and be a bit more proactive to try and deter it from happening in the future. So we do that every day, and we do that not only across the areas of Malak and in particular your electorate of Karama, but we do that, for instance, out at the Palmerston markets. We do it through Parap in the member for Fanny Bay's area, and we do it across all of Greater Darwin. So I wish I had the staffing to actually make sure that we do it all day, every day, but unfortunately the resources are there with what we can do, and we do our best at the moment.
And look, can I certainly congratulate you on the efforts you've done to date. I think I've noticed much higher visible police presence. I know you've been doing some operations around Karama. We'd love it. Just a bit of personal feedback. Members of the community would say, can you do it in the afternoon, not necessarily in the morning, because that's when they tend to have more trouble, but that's just a bit of feedback. But going back to the public housing, when you collect your statistics, do you collect any statistics that actually identifies crime or antisocial behaviour associated with public housing as opposed to elsewhere in the community?
Thank you, Member for Karama. Yes, we do, and we work very closely with the Department of Housing and the FISOs in relation to that. We share information quite a bit in relation to what actually happens in those housing estates. So, for instance, out at Grey, we did an operation out at Grey, and we have statistics out there relating to not only the antisocial behaviour, but how many incidents we found, how many litres of alcohol tipped out, what are the times of day that we do experience those. I definitely take your feedback in terms of evening shifts. It is something that I have been trying to mix up a little bit, because if we keep it during the day and during the morning, it's really good getting the alcohol out of the system early, but we've still got that evening shift time where we need to do that as well. So yes, we collaborate with housing in terms of all of the stats in and around housing estates.
So are those statistics available publicly, or are they just internal?
They're internal, and I say that because what we do is we use those to feed our intelligence operations. So the intelligence we gather from that then feeds into the operations, and so that we can target our resources so that they're not inefficient. Yeah, so just so that we know where we're targeting, rather than going somewhere that when we turn up there's nothing happening.
And is there any way of aggregating those so that you can plot a trend over time to get a rough idea whether it's going up or down?
And that's what our Territory Community Safety Coordination Centre will be doing. I have shown them some very old intelligence products that show trends for things like suburbs, which include housing estates. So right at the moment, we do have that information, but we will trend those eventually. Now, they will obviously come out in the crime stats in terms of actual crime stats, but internally, so that we can work with both the FISOs and the TSOs, we do need to know that information for sure. Whether we can publicly release those, I don't know, but we use them internally to trend, yes.
So maybe for the Chief Minister, you could look at seeing if the stats could be adjusted so they would be available, particularly for MLAs and their suburbs, so they can understand without compromising the internal workings. That's just a request.
Yes, we can certainly look at that. That's probably one for the Attorney General, but I'm sure someone is listening. Okay. I also just thought, just to add to your line of questioning, Member for Karama, just for the opposition leader, for her electorate. So in Katherine, there's the weekly meeting, and then there's the nightly pre-muster meetings as well, with all of the organisations in Katherine that are.
Thanks, Chief Minister. Just a reminder, Catherine's not my electorate. It belongs to your minister.
No, I know, but you're very interested in all things
as my
Katherine.
hometown,
so,
yes,
yeah,
I'm a resident of Katherine. Thank you.
No further questions.
Was that a question on notice, Chief Minister?
Oh, no, I was just adding
cool.
to Assistant Commissioner Wright. I do have an answer to a question on notice, though. I don't remember the number, but it was the one about which agency will pay for the Justice Blow review. I can confirm that will be Chief Minister and Cabinet.
Okay, that is question 1.23. Thank you, Chief Minister. Member for Johnston? Okay, member for Fanny Bay. Okay. Yeah, been very patient. I have one too.
Thank you, Chair. So my question is around, I'm going to take us back again to my favourite topic, which is administrative burden. I know we've rolled out 𝙍𝙀𝙇𝙀𝙑𝙍𝙎 across the anti-police force as opposed to Promise, which was previously implemented. And some of the feedback that I've received from police officers across is it's quite arduous and the administrative burden side, and it takes officers a long time to either get data or use the data, or you know, it's a long process for people to be able to do the administrative side of the work that they've been doing on the road. I'm just wondering if there's been any support provided to try and reduce some of that administrative burden, and what's happening in that space to make sure our police can get on with the job with being on the road.
So yeah, 𝙍𝙀𝙇𝙀𝙑, you know, like with anything, has been quite the adjustment, and I've certainly heard, like you, member for Fanny Bay, you know, police, you know, finding it clunky, but Commander John Atkin has been leading 𝙍𝙀𝙑 for a very long time, so I might ask him to help answer your question.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you for the question. The question that I commonly ask of our frontline workers is it better today than it was in November 2023? 𝙍𝙀𝙑𝙀𝙑, like any of those commercial off-the-shelf systems, are things that you can't just leave. You need to continue to update. As we have had various different things happen, including law reform, you have to make updates to the system. We're continually trying to make it better for our workforce. We work closely with DCDD, obviously, who do all of the technical work. We do quite a lot of feedback sessions with the workforce to try and see what process improvements we can make from an end user's perspective. So we're consistently looking at how we can make it better. And since November 23, we have done dozens of various different changes and improvements to continue to make it better.
Thank you. Is there anything in planning moving forward to try and support police officers not having to go back to a desk and do the you know, hours of admin that they're doing in relation to getting support for that work? Is that happening?
Thank you for the question. And yes, that is a thing that we're working with DCDD on. We did actually do what we call a mobile data terminal trial a number of years ago. The technology wasn't quite right then when we did that, particularly in our remote areas where communications are a little bit restricted, but that is absolutely something that we are working on with DCDD and doing some scoping activities exactly on that point so that we can allow our police officers to do more in the field.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I have another question in a different field about the election commitment around the police retention bonus. I'm just wondering if you can provide an update on, I know that might be in the EBA kind of negotiations and we're talking through that, but just wondering if there's any update on that one.
Yeah, so that'll be ready to go come 1 July. 1 July, yeah, as promised.
Thank you. And just my last sort of point on the social order side of things, I know that in the Fanny Bay electorate, that's one of the main things that people talk to me about is the antisocial behaviour and the escalating violence that comes with that sometimes. You've talked about what happens in police. I'm wondering if there's any plans in the future to grow our response to social order with the NT police, if there's anything happening, given that that's one of our main concerns with the mandatory alcohol rehabilitation and all that sort of stuff going forward.
Yeah, it's a huge issue for us. So we've been working to make sure that we're, you know, finding new ways to be able to deliver better outcomes for safer communities. So certainly through our banned drinker register review, we're hoping that there's some new things we can do there or work through to deal with, obviously, alcohol-fueled violence and harm in our community. And we've already done the work around nuisance public drinking. Alcohol mandatory treatment will also, you know, what that looks like going forward will also be incredibly helpful. But it's about boots on the ground, really, making sure we've got police able to do that frontline work. As Commander Atkins said, his role with digital transformation really provides opportunities for us to be keeping our police out. You know, you go into a police station, you don't really want to see any police in there, right? We want them all out on the road, but inevitably there will be police sitting there typing away, doing the work that they've got to do. So how can we better support them, you know, with best practice technology? So it's all in the mix, and we're looking forward to doing some further work and broader work specifically around antisocial behaviour, how we can work better with public housing safety officers, transit safety officers, you know, the PORU team. There's a number of people doing a number of things across government, and they all have their little bit, and it's about making sure that that's working as efficiently as possible.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry. This is a specific question, I think, for the Commissioner, the Acting Commissioner. Have the recommendations from the inquest into David 𝙍𝙀𝙇𝙬𝙍𝙎's death in 2009 been implemented? Specifically, recommendation 195 relating to operational police being trained and retrained using reality-based training techniques to a sufficient degree to ensure a proper understanding of the dangers of sudden cardiac arrest and positional restraint asphyxia, and 196, the Northern Territory Police should ensure that all members are trained and retrained in strategies to deal with mentally ill persons, both in custody and generally in the course of their duties.
I apologise, Member for Johnson. Can you just repeat the first part of that question, the name of the inquest?
Yeah. David 𝙍𝙀𝙍𝙬𝙍𝙬, so GULRRALPA, 2009.
Yeah. Member for Johnson, we may have to take that on notice because there's been several changes to policy and changes at the college and what we implement and then take away. And so I'm sure 2009 recommendations would have been met and dealt with, but I'm not sure if that's still in place. So I'll have to take that on notice and get that information for you.
All right. I'm happy to just pause that for a minute because my next question might satisfy, which is whether you can provide us with details of the NT Police training that addresses the prone hold and how to deal with mentally ill individuals or individuals with an intellectual impairment.
I might ask if I can take that and provide you that information in totality in response to your questions because it delves at our operational training at the Police College. So part of that would be an OSTT answer and part of that would be a coronial recommendation implementation. So I'll take it to provide a complete answer on notice if that's okay.
Okay, so I'm happy to that is...
Member for Johnston, please restate the question for the record.
So have the recommendations from the inquest into David 𝙍𝙀𝙍𝙬𝙍's death in 2009 been implemented? Specifically, 195 relating to operational police being trained and retrained using reality-based training technique to a sufficient degree to ensure a proper understanding of the dangers of sudden cardiac arrest and positional restraint asphyxia, and 196, the Northern Territory Police should ensure that all members are trained and retrained in strategies to deal with mentally ill persons both in custody and generally in the course of their duty. Can you provide details of the NT Police training that addresses the prone hold and how to deal with mentally ill individuals or individuals with an intellectual impairment?
Chief Minister, do you accept the question?
Yes, thank you.
The question asked by the member for Johnston of the Chief Minister has been allocated the number 1.24. Member for Johnston.
Thank you. On a different tack, Acting Commissioner, I'm wondering if you can describe what the policing model is that is adopted and used by the NT Police.
Community policing is at the forefront of everything that we do.
And can you talk more to this model about how you follow this model and provide some practical examples?
Well, it's about engagement before enforcement. It's being physically seen in the communities. It's about informing ourselves of the issues. It's creating a safe police presence where people feel safe to report matters to police. And that's what we do every day across the Northern Territory by engaging with the public, engaging with the communities that we proudly serve on. And all of our officers are aware that we're community police force.
Thank you. And does the NT Police have any of the following strategies? A crime reduction and prevention strategy?
We do, but I might defer, if you're happy, I might defer some of these questions to Deputy Commissioner Hollamby to take you through those specific strategies.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Look, we have a lot of strategies, and I couldn't recite them all to you because there's that many of them. But I can say that we did have a crime reduction strategy, which we are in recent weeks have gone back to the future and picked up an old one and are re-implementing that because it was a good strategy.
So I think, and I appreciate, I'm sure you have many, many strategies. There's 4 I'm interested in specifically, and I'm wondering whether it will be possible to have copies of them if they're current. So one is crime reduction and prevention, one is social order, one is alcohol policing, and one is domestic, family and sexual violence.
We've certainly got domestic, family and sexual violence strategies. The others, not so much, but they are internal documents and they're internal guiding documents. So we don't publish them publicly. So that's the status of those.
Okay. But they would be in line with the overall strategy, the community policing strategy, is that correct? Or
look, we have a strategic plan, and it's a plan on a page. It's on an A3 page, and it's a guiding document. All of our senior sergeant and above are very, very experienced police officers, sergeants and above for that matter, very, very experienced police officers. We give them some guidance and ask that they deliver services to the community. That's not just reactive policing, it's also the preventative stuff, which, you can write a strategy, but that's not necessarily going to get runs on the board. It's the guidance and mentoring of experienced frontline police that we get our biggest bang for our buck for.
Okay, thank you. So just to be clear, there are some strategies, there's some internal policies, but none of them are public, is that correct?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I can say that we did have all of those strategies, and change of commissioner usually comes with new strategies, and not all of them had been implemented by the time the new commissioner left. And now it's probably not an ideal time to start writing new strategies pending the arrival of a new commissioner. But that's not to say we don't want to take business forward either. So there are some strategies that we will implement because they're no-brainers.
Excuse me, Chair. Just a reminder, I think we've got 25 minutes to go. There is another agency looking to come in which we may want to ask questions of, but I'm just conscious of time.
Yes, thank you, Member for Karama. I'll let Member for Johnston continue. I think it's just myself and the Member for Johnston that has questions remaining on police.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I have some questions once you finish your
All right.
I actually have a couple of questions from the member for Mauka.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Go for it, Member for Johnston.
So one which has been, hang on, I'll go to the top there. Sorry, this is in relation to, I've got too many pieces of paper here, sorry. This has already been on the table, but the members asked me to ask it as well. What is the department capacity to hold independent inquiries in the Northern Territory when Northern Territory Police are involved in an incident? I am asking this question generally, but also in relation to the current investigation of 𝙍𝙀𝙇𝙀𝙑𝙀𝙀 death. Given that this is another young man from Yuendamu that has died in police presence just a few years following 𝙍𝙀𝙀𝙀, why are you not listening to the family and the community and the Federal Minister for Indigenous Australians to provide an independent investigation so that NT Police are not investigating NT Police? If others can be sworn in under the Police Administration Act, why isn't that happening in this case?
So I feel like we have answered this question. The politicisation of this issue is inappropriate. It's been done before by Labor and looks like they're very happy to tread this well-worn path again. That's not something we would do. The acting police commissioner has made it very clear that police are best placed and in fact have statutory obligations to undertake this work, both on behalf of the Territory but also on behalf of the coroner. I mean, I'm happy for the Acting Commissioner to provide any further information about that, but I feel like we're very clearly on the record on this.
Do you have any other questions, Member for Johnson?
Yeah, just a couple more from the member for Walker, unless you wanted to respond.
Thank you, Member for Johnson. I'll just add a little bit. So this is not something unusual for this jurisdiction. Every state and territory in Australia has an act that sets out the duties and responsibilities of their police force, and we're no different to the rest of the country. And the Police Administration Act establishes the police force of the Northern Territory and sets out what our roles and responsibilities are, and they are to investigate these matters and criminality within the Northern Territory, and that's where this current investigation is currently sitting. So it's inappropriate for us to bring somebody from another jurisdiction that doesn't have the expertise in territory legislation, in the numerous case law rulings and difficulties that investigators in the Territory have to navigate through. The Territory community is best served with the experts that do this work every single day of the week, and I have complete confidence in their ability to do so. So, like I said, the call for an independent investigation is probably slightly misinformed by the people that don't understand the processes in place, and there's plenty of oversight to those investigations with the mechanisms available already in the Northern Territory.
Thank you, Assistant Commissioner. Just a couple more questions from the member for Mulka. Member for Mulka says, I have spoken a lot about peacekeepers for our communities. These are elders and leaders in our communities who hold equal status with a police officer of high rank. They are equal with the police commissioner, the deputies and the superintendents. Peacekeepers also come under the authority of our law and have deep knowledge of Yolngu Rom. Will this government support partnerships between our clan leaders, our peacekeepers and the police, and how will you do that?
Yeah, Acting Commissioner Dole will answer that question.
Thank you, Member for Johnson. So we work across communities every day of the week, 24 hours a day. We currently work with a lot of the peacekeepers in communities, so we do a lot of work with Southern Tanami 𝙍𝙀𝙇𝙬𝙍. I know across the northeast, Arnhem Superintendent Nobbs is very active in engaging senior community leaders, and it's something that we do and we embrace, and we're happy to continue to work with that and take on board that advice to us on the culturally appropriate way in dealing with community members and issues that may arise on the various communities. And like I said, one of our key points in our plan is engagement before enforcement. So that's a key driver of what we do, and we always consult those that have the best knowledge of the local solutions for the community involved.
So just thank you, and just further to that, so what requirements or guidelines exist for police to work with elders and leaders in remote communities before, for example, executing a warrant or searching a house or arresting an individual?
So there's no specific policy in relation to it. So it's broadly sweeping about trust and engagement, and we encourage our officers locally to build those connections in the 49 permanent police stations we have across the Territory and the 15 police posts, because nothing's the same across the Territory. So a solution in northeast Arnhem Land isn't going to be the same solution in Central Australia and the desert country. So it's a localised solution by local officers with community leaders that best fits the response to the specific incident.
And one final question from the member from Walker in relation to that. How many hours per week are police officers learning the language of the community they reside in?
That's not something I probably have the information on, Member for Johnson. And again, 49 permanent police stations across the NT, 15 police posts. I believe there's 64 odd languages across the Northern Territory. So it's something I'd have to look into, but I do know that across the Territory, the dedicated officers that serve on communities are making efforts to engage. Some of them very much so learning the language, but it's not a specific program that the Northern Territory Police has in place.
There's no requirement for people to learn language?
No, there's no requirement currently.
I've got just a couple of questions. The first one is rather specific, and Chief Minister, please let me know if this is more suited for the Infrastructure Minister. It's just referring to the accidents that have occurred on Kirkland Road. And so I'm just interested from a road safety perspective, is some of the issues identified by police and then communicated to the infrastructure department to be improved upon. Just if I can bring just noting the accidents that are used there and the amount of people in my electorate that use that road.
Yeah, Kirkland Road is a very, very busy road, and it's been, I'm the local member at 𝙍𝙀𝙇𝙀𝙑 as well, so we've certainly had a very traumatic few weeks with both those road incidents and a number of other tragic incidents in our community. I'll pass on to Deputy Commissioner Hollamby to go through how that, in a practical sense, works.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Chair. I drive that road every day, so I know it really, really well. What I can say is we meet quite regularly with Department of Lands and Infrastructure, and there's a series of meetings. One is a legislative review, but the important one is a major crash review. So we will meet with DLI to talk about the causal factors, which includes road conditions and whether they contributed to it. I will say both of these matters are before the court at the moment, and it probably isn't appropriate to express views and opinions on the cause of those crashes right now.
Understood. So that makes sense. So you guys would then pass that information on to DLI if in the event you believe it is.
Yeah, and vice versa. They will pass information on to us if there's a causal factor on or about the road.
Going back to current police, I note the figures given. Thank you. Are there any, and it's probably for the Commissioner, are there targets you hope to see in the short term and medium term? Knowing that, more, we would always want more, but is there targets you've set for the police force?
Yes, so thank you, Chair. The targets set basically are in relation to the funding given to us in relation to the Kelly Review. So it was a commitment to 200 extra police over the next 4 years. We've been given the first stream of funding, I believe. The 50 positions have been created. So that's ongoing funding for the next few financial years. So our target is to reduce attrition, maintain the numbers of police that we have, and increase our police force by at least 50 a year. Now, if we're doing well with our recruitment strategies and our attrition slows, we may be able to bring some of that funding forward and increase those numbers sooner rather than the 3-year period which we've got left.
Thank you. My third point is to nuisance public drinking, and I guess we raise this because the Parliament has passed these laws, so we want to see them enacted. Do we have any figures on since the implementation of that law, how many times has police actually used that law on the ground?
Yes, so our nuisance public drinking offence also is an automatic trigger for police to issue a banned drinker order as well. I've just got the numbers here. So 4 people for the reporting period have been charged with nuisance public drinking, 2 in Darwin, and they're awaiting a court outcome, 1 in Alice Springs, which was withdrawn in court, and 1 in Katherine, which is waiting for a court outcome. And 170 infringements have been issued, and most of those have been in Alice Springs and Katherine.
I guess I raised the question, I still see a lot of nuisance public drinking in Palmerston. So would an officer be able to see if a infringement was given to the individual prior?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The answer is yes, if they look for it. It won't immediately stand out that they've previously been issued with an infringement. I will say that one thing that Palmerston and the northern suburbs had been grappling with is just the overwhelming demand for services. So that basically put us in a response mode where we were continuously responding to requests for assistance from the police. And we hadn't been engaging as much as we should in proactive policing and preventative policing. So we've been working really, really hard to get on top of that so we can get in front of the game. And, this last week hasn't been too bad in terms of allowing us to engage in preventative policing. But that's where we want to be, is where we're actively targeting problem drinkers before they become a nuisance, if that makes sense.
Thanks for that. I guess a follow-on to that would be police numbers for Palmerston. Is there any indicative figures for current students at the college and how many will be coming to Palmerston?
I can't give you those figures. I can say that in the new positions that are coming online on the 1st of July, as a part of the Kelly review, 7 of those have been allocated to Palmerston.
Thank you.
I thought I'd just add between, so for the reporting period, police have issued 10,368 videos, which is pretty amazing.
Thank you, Chief Minister. My final question before I hand over, Leader of the Opposition. School-based constables. So I know we've got a fantastic school-based constable at Palmerston College. How's that looking for the wider Northern Territory and in remote areas as well and remote schools? Are they getting the engagement with local police as well?
So we're very supportive of our school-based policing program, and obviously the more police we have, then the more energy we can pour into the program. But it does go to that root causes of crime issue that we're trying to deal with as well, making sure that young people are growing up with a strong respect for our police and seeing the work that police do and understanding more about their role in the community and having that respect for them. I think we see a lot of the very high numbers of assaults on police, and I know the member for Arifura asked me about that earlier, because there's this breakdown in respect and respect for our police, and that's something that we need to change. And it's a really, amongst other things that obviously school-based policing does, one really important thing is to make sure that young people have a very healthy respect for our police, that they learn at a young age and obviously carry through them for life. And that investment early will hopefully mean at the end we're seeing some of those assault numbers, amongst other things, reduce, but young people being supported into making better choices right from the start. But I can pass to the Acting Commissioner.
Thank you, Member for Drysdale. Also, in additional to the school-based policing program, which is staffed by constables and auxiliaries, there's a plan to expand our Aboriginal liaison officers into school, and that's co-funded with the Department of Education. So that's well underway, and we're currently in the process of finalising the first stage of that, which will be remote-based Aboriginal liaison officers employed by the Northern Territory Police and working in remote schools as that conduit between community and police, and that trusted person of respect in the community that has the ability to take concerns off the student and their families and liaise with the police. So that program is well underway, and it's due to roll out in the coming months with several trial sites. I can't give you the sites right at the present moment, but it's across several communities.
It's just I guess my question more just goes to, is it something you're working on, I guess, growing?
Absolutely, and that school-based Aboriginal liaison officer will be the next step into that remote service.
Mr Chair, I've got some answers back to questions taken on notice for the opposition leader. So question number 1.7, I have a response to, which were how many results in the reporting period resulted in findings of improper conduct. This was when we had the ICAC this morning. And for the period 1 July 2024 to 31 March 2025, there were 2 reports with findings of improper conduct, Operation Apollo and Operation Tasman. I've got an answer to question 1.8 by the opposition leader. The question was how many recommendations were made by the ICAC last year and how many of those have been fully implemented by the agencies affected. The answer is the ICAC made 58 recommendations for the financial year ending 30 June 2024, with 12 recommendations fully implemented by the agencies affected. The rest of the recommendations are in the process of being implemented. And question 1.9 asked by the member for Johnston was please provide the deadline for the response to the recommendations from Operation Beaufort. And the answer is that there were no recommendations made from Operation Beaufort. Thank you.
Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Chair. Chief Minister, you made the commitment to expand school-based policing. However, in your budget, there's $3 million for this program, which is the same as the last budget and the year before that. Can you explain how there's an expansion in this year's budget?
Well, I think the Acting Commissioner just talked to what next step plans are. Yeah, so our budget has the baseline, and then it's actually going to be the Department of Education who are going to fund the ALOs through that expansion because they see such a significant value, and particularly in supporting getting our kids back to school. You know, it's a wonderful opportunity to really expand the service, and having spoken to a couple of the ALOs about it, they're looking forward to it.
Thank you. And Chief Minister, absolutely agree with you in terms of the good work of the Aboriginal liaison officers in the police force. Is there something in your government's remit that will focus on improving the entitlements received by the ALOs, because they're obviously very well respected, they're doing some really great community engagement, however, they are not getting the same entitlements as their fellow constables?
Yeah, so that's part of the work that Leanne Little is doing, to go to your question earlier, member for Johnson, around whether the levels are appropriate. So the Acting Commissioner mentioned AO2s and AO4s, so does that need to be changed? But also providing those pathways. I think there's been a lot of focus. I mean, we just had, was it 17 Aboriginal community police officers graduate into constables just on Friday. And one was an ALO at the start of their career, which is fantastic. So it's about really providing the support and the pathways as well for our people. But I guess the short answer is yes, that is work being led by Ms. Little.
Thank you. And Chief Minister, just to confirm, will that also include conversations around either perhaps pro rata of housing entitlements for those ALOs?
Well, I think Ms. Little's doing that work, and once she comes forward with that, we'll know a bit more about what it looks like.
Thank you. And Chief Minister, I missed the opportunity as the member for Drysdale, as the chair, was doing line of questioning that was in his right as chair. But you spoke earlier about the banned drinker orders. In Katherine, we know that there was an increase of 354% between the months of February and April just this year, including 332 BDOs just in the month of April alone. Is this not a red flag to show that the alcohol-fueled violence in Katherine and the antisocial behaviour has gotten to an all-time high?
Yeah, I'll pass on to Deputy Commissioner Hollamby about that, but my understanding from the team on the ground out there is it's because they were doing such amazing proactive policing that were out there right across the community. So I'll let the Deputy Commissioner answer that.
Yeah, thanks, Leader of the Opposition. I can say that was a targeted strategy to put problem drinkers on the banned drinkers register. So it had minimal impact on the general population, but the problem drinkers were the ones that were subject to the banned drinkers orders, and there was no apologies for that. There was a targeted strategy.
Thank you. Chief Minister, when it comes to the surge of motor vehicle thefts in Alice Springs, is there a proactive plan of policing around this to keep the people of Alice Springs safe?
We've seen some pretty hideous incidents around stolen motor vehicles in Alice Springs, not the least of which ramming of police vehicles and endangering the lives of our officers. So it's a very serious issue. I might pass to Acting Commissioner Dole for some more details around how police manage these very violent and dangerous incidents.
Thank you, Chief Minister. Thank you, Leader of the Opposition. Look, the theft of motor vehicles is a continuing problem for the Northern Territory Police. So one of the things that we are actively doing is encouraging people to make themselves less target friendly. So the hiding of keys and things like that, but it's something the Northern Territory Police are always focusing on. It's very difficult to target the theft of unlawful motor vehicles to any specific residence because it occurs all over the greater Alice Springs area. But what we have got is proactive strategies for resolving and finding stolen motor vehicles and resolving the issues of stolen motor vehicles driving around Alice Springs dangerously, and that's with the use of the police drone. So we've got far more success now in preventing the harm that comes with the stolen motor vehicle and a higher rate of recovery for stolen motor vehicles. But the stopping the original theft of it is an ongoing problem that needs the community support to help target harden themselves and make those keys not available.
And we're also doing some work through the Traffic Act working group that we've got going on as well around whether there's any law changes we could make or anything to better support our police. And sometimes Alice Springs has got quite nuanced repetitive incidences as compared to Darwin, for example. So that working group is also looking at that with changes to the Traffic Act, which I think we're expecting later this year from memory.
Thank you, Chief Minister. And can you let the committee know how many people have been charged with the ram rate offences and a breakdown of statistics between adults and youths of who've been charged under the new legislation?
Yes, I can. Thank you very much for the question, Opposition Leader. So the new legislation was introduced on 30 October. So between 30 October, 2024 and 31 March 2025, there have been 5 adult offenders that have been charged with the offence for a total of 5 charges. And between that exact same reporting period, so 30 October 2024 to 31 March 2025, there have been a total of 18 youth offenders charged with the offence for a total of 41 charges.
Thank you, Chief Minister. Very much appreciated. Chief Minister, are there any prisoners being held on remand in police watch houses currently?
Yes, and I'll pass to Acting Commissioner Dole.
Yes, there is. This morning, the count of police prisoners on behalf of corrections was 31 correctional prisoners in the Palmerston Watch House. I don't have the figures for Alice Springs, but I believe it was fairly low.
Thank you. And Chief Minister, would you be able to take on notice, just due to time, if we could receive a breakdown of the number of prisoners held in police watch houses, broken down by the facility itself, the amount of adults, the amount of young people and their gender, please?
Yeah, for what period?
Well, I would assume today you can't answer on the spot today, so for today's date would be great.
Although it's not part of the reporting period.
But if it's on notice, it'll be within the 30 days, which then covers you until the 30th.
So do a snapshot for today?
Well, so at this reporting period, I know you probably will be able to provide.
Just fluctuates every day. So people aren't in the watch houses long compared to what they were. It might be a few days. So every day is different. Yeah, sorry.
Of the 31 today, then if we could get a breakdown of that, of the facility they're in, the adults, the young, or the age breakdown and the gender breakdown.
Look, we can do that. I will point out that Sunday, in this case being Monday because of the public holiday, is probably the worst example. It's least representative of what we have because we've effectively got 3 days worth of of people in our cells. So if you want to pick this Wednesday, it might be a better day to give you a better snapshot.
Unfortunately, we don't have your hearing on tomorrow, so I'd be very appreciative if it was the 31 today.
Yeah, sure.
Wednesday last week. Anyway, it's just a point in time. It fluctuates quite literally on a daily basis. So I'm happy to take that on notice.
All right.
On an hourly basis, yeah.
This will make for the last question. So, Leader of the Opposition, please restate the question for the record.
Thank you, Chair. Chief Minister, of the 31 prisoners that are currently held in watch houses across the Northern Territory, today, the 10th of June, 2025, can you please break down the number by facility, the number of adults and young people and their gender, please?
Chief Minister, do you accept the question?
Can I just ask that we reframe the question a little bit by saying at 0700 hours this morning? And
Be more specific, you're saying?
Be more specific, because the majority of those prisoners, well, not the, a good chunk of those would have gone to court at 9 o'clock this morning.
Understand, Deputy Commissioner. Leader of the Opposition, if you could add a
could I
specific
amend
time.
to include at 7 o'clock this morning?
At 7 o'clock this morning, yes. Chief Minister, do you accept the question?
Yes, thank you.
The question asked by the Leader of the Opposition of the Chief Minister has been allocated the number 1.25. Thank you, Chief Minister, for your time today. Thank you, members of the Northern Territory Police Force. I'd also like to thank all the members of the Northern Territory Fire and Emergency Services for all their work.
Yes.
And the hard work everyone behind the scenes has put into preparing for estimates, even though we have ran out of time and they will not be able to join us today. So thank you.
Thank you. I just want to extend my thanks to the team who are here with me today, but to everyone back in the agency who've put a lot of work into preparing today. It's a huge piece of work that people do year in, year out, and it's for a very important and good reason. But I'd also like to thank our fire and emergency service teams who've also put in equal amounts of work and didn't get the opportunity to showcase the amazing work that they've been doing. And let's not forget that's a new agency, so they're really proud of what they've been able to achieve to date, and certainly I know we'll keep spruiking their praises at different times, and I look forward and welcome questions in Parliament about the wonderful work that our fire and emergency services are doing. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Chief Minister. That concludes the estimates hearings for today. Hearings will recommence tomorrow, Wednesday the 11th of June at 9 a.m. with questions of the Treasurer. I now close and adjourn for the evening.